Yeah.
Okay, Sylvia, it says that it's broadcasting. Cool. Okay, Sylvia. So if you don't mind, I want to kind of straight to memory palace and associations for your present perfect, and then I imagine we'll have time to even present perfect continues today.
Sure, let's do it. So, well, so from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my first, so according to my memory policy, so I have four basic. Um, so the first one, the station way, is the lavabo, the on the beginning of my house. So it's lavabo. Lavabo for me represents the connection, right, between the past and the present. And so inside there we have the DeLorean car from the Back to the Future movie. And so we have a small car, a small DeLorean, running on the walls, making a very weird noises. And for me, the connection from the past to the present. And the sentence, it's the that is associated with this with this station is I have worked at or for Cisco for years, for example, right?
Okay, good. And just to clarify, Silvio, you're doing this from memory, right? You're not looking at your spreadsheet or anything like that, right?
Yeah, from my heart.
Try to change some configurations here, some settings here. I put my just the audio because I'm trying to improve the
quality,
but also what I'd like to do is just as you're going to be speaking most of the time, I want to put you as the main picture for the camera here, and so it kind of stops this switching back and forth as you're going to be. Let's see here, cameraman, sure, hyper switcher. How do I do that? Let's see, Silvio, present to everyone. Okay, let's see if it's going to stay on you now and stop switching back and forth. It's kind of, I don't know, for you, it's a little bit distracting for me when it's switching back and forth so fast, you know?
Okay, no problem.
Okay, I think I've got it figured out. Okay, go ahead, so good.
Okay, so in the second station is the hall of my house, and it, for me, it represents the unfinished period of time, and there we have a big telepresence system. I mean, a really big video screen where we have on the other side we have the Clockman from the Alice movie. So what is the name of the Mrs. Maravilha? So then we have
Alice in Wonderland in English.
Yeah, that's correct. So there is a new character that is a man that controls the time. So he has a really big clock on his body, right? So I'm having a conference call with him, and we are sitting on a big table, talking through the video screen, and then we have all the other characters on the video conference as well. So the Johnny Depp and all other characters. And then we are having a conference call, and at the same time, we're having a kind of a discussion, let's say that, and everybody is throwing out tea through the video screen, right? So everybody is screaming and threw out tea from one side to the other side, right?
Right, really hot tea, right? Scalding hot tea.
Hot tea. That's something crazy. So the sentence it's that I've been using to represent this is I have joined 2 conference calls today, right?
Repeat the sentence, please. There's a breakup in the phone.
I have joined conference calls, right? So
I've completed.
It means that an action that I've joined 2 conference calls today.
I've done.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, the internet.
Is that correct?
Yes, I've done 2 conference calls today. That's correct. And yeah. What's your association for the unfinished part?
Yeah, the unfinished. I'm using the clock that is on the clock main body, right, to remember me about the unfinished period of time. So the clock itself represents this idea for me.
The clock represents unfinished.
Unfinished.
Only the clock?
The clock itself is never done, right? So no, the clock and the second thing that is more related to my sentence is the conference activity. I mean, for me, it's a kind of activity that I always have to do. So in the morning, then I'm going to have another one in the afternoon, and et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it's a kind of unfinished activity, right? So I'm using both things at the same time. The idea of having an activity that it's always happening for me, right? So both things are related to each other to remind me about the unfinished period of time.
Silvio, and this is why, Anthony is especially is always talking about we have to make our own associations, right? Because this is a perfect example about something that is have a meaning to you, right? So that's why your association is going to be much more memorable. It's going to be much easier to remember than or me making associations or my examples, right? So that's one of the main reasons that Anthony always tries to give as few examples as possible. Okay, here's a 1 or 2, a couple, for you to get the idea. But at the end of the day, each one of us should make our, because it's going to be much easier, right? Because these are personal things related to our life's experience. Right?
Yeah, personal things, personal meetings. No, good. Agree. All right, and then we go to the third station. And there I'm representing the idea of general past experience, right? And so what I have there is just right in the middle of the living room, I have a military person that represents the general, right? And for that, I'm using the ex-Brazilian president, Figueiredo. So he's there, right in the middle of the room. playing a clarinet, and at the
Why is
same
he playing a
time,
clarinet?
sorry,
Why is he playing a clarinet?
the clarinet, because for me it represents a general past experience that I have done before, right? And that's a personal example, right?
Because
So
in the past
something
you
that I
played
have.
the clarinet.
Yeah, that's correct.
Excellent.
That's correct. Yeah, but he's playing a very bad way, and he's playing a Brazilian. How do I say that? Hino nacional, Brazilian athlete.
National anthem.
National anthem. Yeah, so he's playing that in a very bad way, right? Very desafinado. So that represents for me. So the general itself, I mean, the military man represents the idea of things, and in the clarinet, it's a personal example. It has a personal meaning because I used to play clarinet as well, and then to on this crazy scene, we are using this national. He's playing very bad, right? So that's a way that I'm trying to remember that more easily.
Good.
And man, the fourth, tell me.
Silvio, what about your example sentence?
Oh, the example sentence is I have studied clarinet.
Good. And this idea is.
So I have.
Go ahead.
No, because I have changed this sentence because last time I remember that I had used I have studied clarinet in the last year, right? And then I take this part out, right? Because I don't want it to be specific, right? In terms of when this action happened. So I take out this last part of the sentence in the last year. So I keep only I have studied clarinet to represent a general past experience, right?
Exactly. Because if you say in the last year, then that's going to relate with the second reason. You're talking about unfinished period of time, in the last year being an unfinished period of time. And or a connection, right? Sorry, not unfinished. Connection from last year until now, the first reason. And this way, this general past idea, experience, right? Is it necessary to know, depending on the context, when you played clarinet? No. In some contexts, it won't be important to know when you did that, but just the simple fact that you have done that in the past, and it hints that there is a possibility that you might do this again in the future, right? So that's the idea there. Good. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. Well, so the fourth station, we haven't discussed about it yet. To be honest, I haven't came up with something very creative, but the fourth station is my kitchen itself, and so the idea here is to represent something that happened in a recent past, right? And so here I'd like to represent a trip, for example. So 2 months ago, I traveled to US to took a training. So here I'm trying to represent this this trip as a recent past activity, right? But I have a question here, Joshua, because when we say a recent past, how long is it? I mean, recent past is something that happened some hours ago or a day ago, or I can even consider it, for example, a trip that I had last year as something recent for me. Do you get my question? So how far is it? So how,
That's a good question.
when I say recent past,
It's a good question. So,
immediately?
you know, the truth is, the best answer is it's relative, right? Kind of with everything in grammar is it's relative.
It depends.
So, so all of the above can work, relatively thinking about recent past. But most of the time, recent past and present perfect, it's like 5 minutes ago, I've just sent the report. I've just received an email. The information from our customer, and now we've been waiting on this, and I've just received it, right? So usually, most of the time when we use that, it's kind of emphasizing this recentness of recent past. So you'll see it probably most of the time in context, really like 5 minutes recent past, or something relative in that way. But at the same time, right, it's not incorrect if you're thinking as last summer or last year. As long as you're not, if you don't specify, because if it's like we've just traveled to this place, and then if you say last year, well, then that eliminates the possibility to use the present perfect, because specific period of time in the past, last year, we can only use simple past.
Right. Okay, so let me try to come up with something right now. So I got the idea. So let me try to change that. So the station is still in the kitchen, and then to represent that, I mean the recent past, I could use that I am sitting on a table inside the kitchen with my laptop, with my computer, and I'm trying to represent, for example, this sentence: I have received your email, right? Because it's something that I'm always getting, right? So I think it works. And then I can imagine a lot of letters, physical letters, arriving from some place, right? And getting inside the screen of my computer, right? A lot of letters that represent emails getting my computer, right? From the roof, coming from different places, right? So a lot of physical letters coming in, and this movement of letters coming in generate a lot of wind, a lot of, is that correct? Vento, na ventania.
Yes.
So I'm just in the middle of a lot of wind, right? Kind of a tornado or something like that, with a lot of letters coming in on my computer, right? With this, with the sound of the tornado, right? This very characteristic sound of wind, right? My chair starts to to move as well. The table starts to move as well with the wind, with the letters, right? So maybe it's a possibility to represent that. So I've got your email.
Good. And to turn up the volume, how can you exaggerate this?
More. More crazy.
Right. So I mean, maybe if you've already, have this imagined, you know, in your mind's eye, but you really haven't expressed. So there's this tornado, right, with the letters. So that's really good. And as we talk about a lot, or you know, that when we can use more than senses as possible in our association.
Sure.
So I mean, how could you? Tornadoes can be happening for this exaggeration.
Well, so as the tornado is happening inside the kitchen, maybe we can imagine a lot of or some kind of food, or some kind of yeah, we can imagine some food on the tornado as well, with some smell. Yeah, so as I like, for example, coffee, I really like coffee. So I can imagine, for example, the tornado, with the smell of coffee, right?
Right. Silvio, something
How they
funny.
say?
Imagine the tornado. I think you told me that in the somewhat recent past or last semester, you told me that you got a new coffee machine, right?
Yeah, that's correct. An espresso machine.
The tornado has broken. Has your new espresso machine has been picked up by the wind of the tornado and has crashed into the wall or on the floor, and it's broken. Oh, my espresso machine! No!
Oh, that's good, man. You have very good imagination.
Right, and as you said, the smell, right? The smell of the coffee, but now the coffee's on the floor, or on the wall. If it's slammed into the wall, and it's dripping down the wall, So the coffee's dripping down the wall onto your computer, and your computer starts to short circuit and catch on fire. But
oh my gosh, yeah, that's a real exaggeration. Yeah, that's the idea.
That's turning up the volume. You know what I mean? That's how.
Yeah.
How they can turn up the volume. Good. And your example sentence?
A really mess. I have got your email.
Again, please, the audio cut.
I have got your email.
A lot of times with this recent past, we use just. I just
got your email.
I've just received. I've just got.
To emphasize the recent past.
And the past participle of got is one of the few that acceptable. It's get. The base form got, simple past, and the past participle can be got or gotten. So both of those are correct for the.
Correct.
Silvio, good. I'm going to stop the live broadcast here because I think the test has been good so far, and that's kind of what the first part of our class I wanted to see today.
Okay.
In the next part of our class, what we're going to do is add 3 more stations in your memory palace, and then continue the present perfect and make associations for present perfect continuous. More stations. All right?
All right.
Silvio, I'd like to just get a couple, your feedback about, what do you feel about using a memory palace to memorize English grammar rules, and, of course, you can use this to really memorize anything you want, people's names and other things like that, presentations and all kinds of other things. But just your first impression, and if I'm correct, this is your first memory palace, right?
Yeah, you are correct. So actually, it's my.
Go ahead.
Joshua?
Yes, Silvio. Go ahead, and I'd like to get your feedback about what you think about the results. If you think it's an efficient way to memorize these things, because B is about how do you think you're going to remember and use correctly the present perfect now, and obviously English is your second or third language, and you speak English very well. But all the other times, I mean, how many times have you studied this verb tense? And I'm sure it's more than one hand. Probably more than 5 times in the. How long have you been studying English anyway?
Yeah, sure. So I've been studying English for I think more than 7 years, right? And as you said before, so I've been studying present perfect for a while, since the beginning, to be really honest. And this is my first contact with the memory palace technique. Although I have already heard about that, but I haven't had a chance to apply that, right, so far. So it was, this is my first contact with that, with this technique. And to be honest, it's for me, it's really worth, because it's a very good chance not only to rehearse the grammar aspect itself, to review the concept, but more than that, for me, the most important thing is that the technique allows me to really make the connection between the theory and a real situation in a very practical way, right? Because it's really easy to remember the situation where I have to use each kind of grammar aspect in terms of a sentence construction, and when we start making associations with a real situation, it becomes much more easy, right? So, so this is the most important piece, because why, of course, we start to improve the technique, to go through the stations, and it starts to be, we start to make automatically associations, right? So when we see a situation like that one that we have in the station, it's going to be automatically to use the correct grammar construction or the sentence, right? So in summary, for me, it has been very, very useful. I really like that. It can be used not only for English, for anything, right? But especially for grammar, it has been really, really useful, because it allows me to link or to associate the theory with real situations, right? So it's practical. It's not something only theoretical. It's something really, really practical, really straightforward. So my feedback, it's really positive, Joshua.
Fantastic, Silvio. And this is one of the things about mnemonics, because mnemonics capitalizes on the way that our brains work. And our brains work, we remember images. Remember images, actions, locations really, really easier. And our brains don't remember what's called dry data, which is like context, words on paper. Even though we read them and we understand them, it's not the best media for our brains to remember, right? So our brains easily forget all of these words on the paper. So, I mean, imagine how many times you've seen a grammar book in unit, whatever the unit was for the present perfect, and you had the rule and you read it, and then you did the exercises, etc., etc. And then a little bit later, the present perfect was, it would probably be difficult for you to explain, what the present perfect verb tense is, when you use it, and these things. And now that you've taken location, you know where to find this information, you're capitalizing on the way that our brains work easiest, using images, associations, exaggerations. So it's really worth the time that it takes to learn. It takes a few hours to learn and understand about how to make a memory palace, how to make associations, and we talked about exaggeration. That's a part that's important, right, to really turn up the volume. But after you've done that, and like you said, after we understand this, we start doing it, it starts to become easier and easier, and we get faster and faster and faster. So there is a few hours of setup time to learn and understand, but after that, once we start putting into practice, in the mid to long term, it's well worth this time, that we use to set up and to learn about memory palace. Okay, Silvio, fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and stop our recording here, and thank you for getting on the call and walking through that.
No problem.
And we're going to continue our class with making some new
offline
stations to memory palace offline, and creating some associations for present perfect.